Okay, we're going to call our public hearing to order. This is case 2022-15P2. Scholar?
Yes, sir. All right. As you stated, sir, case 2022-15P2. This is a applicant, Robert Lucky Group, who is proposing a mixed-use development at the corner of East Kemper Road and North Lake Drive. The address of the site is 11501 North Lake Drive. As you see on the screen, this is a 4.7 acre site that is currently zoned F, light industrial. For the applicant's proposal, all proposed uses are already approved within the F zoning district, so there's no need for a zone change. So this is an administrative review. To the north, across Kemper Road, is Double O planned office. To the south, east, and west is all light industrial. Of note and for reference, this property at the northwest corner is March 1st Brewery. All right, topography of the site, generally flat. There is currently a drainage swale that essentially runs through the center of the property, east to west. There's quite a bit of drainage that comes onto the site from both public roads as well as private properties on the west side of the site. Okay. This is the applicant's, excuse me, I should say, so this is the applicant's site plan, proposed site plan for the site. It is currently sitting at 0.64 ISR, 64% impermeable surface. Okay. Essentially what we have is we have two dedicated office buildings to the rear with a mixed-use retail office space to the front. And then we also have the northeastern corner of the site is going to be reserved and dedicated for a small restaurant or cafe style use to be determined. I don't think a tenant has been named at this time, but that will be a restaurant use. I should note the applicant is looking for the opportunity to have a drive-through as part of this, although not necessarily fast food, but some type of drive-through feature. That was actually a point of contention with the zoning commission, and we should discuss that in a little more detail. Stormwater on site was initially proposed to be managed with underground stormwater detention. The site has actually been changed. There's actually more open space on the site now, and there is a proposed, let me see if I go to the next site. There we go. Proposed surface detention basin here immediately south of the restaurant pad with this northern boundary of it being actually a retaining wall. Okay. All right. Landscape plan on this site is, for the most part, it's going to meet or exceed the requirements of our buffer yards, with the exception of the southern boundary. Southern boundary is not showing any significant landscaping. However, this site is part of an existing HOA, and so even though it's separate owners, it's all under the same HOA. The southern property is an open parking lot, and I believe the landscaping plan has already been approved by the HOA. So I don't necessarily see a conflict with that. So we can certainly approve this as part of a PUD. or if this is a discussion topic for the trustees, we can just set a condition to apply the standards of Chapter 14 buffer yards to the southern property line as well. Okay. While we're taking a look at this plan, there are multiple sites for dumpster locations on this property. You have one to the along the south property line, in between buildings 2 and 3. Building 1 has a dumpster immediately to the rear and central to the site. The cafe pad has a dumpster in one area of discussion. This is actually what would be considered the front yard of the cafe pad, and would be relatively close to North Lake Drive. If this, we have had multiple discussions with the applicant. They are willing to establish additional conditions for the location of this particular dumpster pad, including upgraded aesthetics or additional landscaping buffer. But in order to make this site work, they are asking for consideration of the placement of the dumpster in the front yard location. Okay. Again, because when the zoning commission approved this site plan with the use of the restaurant pad, they specifically stated that a drive-through would not be permitted. The big issue that I think they were concerned about was stacking onto Kemper Road. With that being said, the applicant has submitted a conceptual plan showing how much stacking they can actually take on just on the restaurant pad site. So there are currently 18 stacking spaces indicated here on this plan, and that's still keeping it on the restaurant pad. That's not even including the internal drive, the private road that feeds the rest of this site. So certainly substantial stacking on here. I don't see a major concern with at least in regards to stacking. Okay. I guess the other thing I should mention, based on the proposed configuration of retail and office space, as well as restaurant pad for the site, we're looking at a total parking requirement of 181 parking spaces. The applicant is providing 202 spaces. Okay. This would be a typical elevation design for these buildings. As you can see, they are single story with residential roofs, typical of the applicant's other commercial products. Okay. We have a 3D color rendering of what of an example of what this site could look like. And the floor plans, as simple as this is, I think what we're getting at here is that these are modular, built-to-suit interiors. You'll have 2 entrances to the front, 2 to the side, with the ability to partition these as needed, as owner occupants are signed on. And I do believe we'll let the applicant talk about this in more detail, but I do believe the intention is to have each one of these spaces as an owner occupant. Okay.
Go back one, Scholar.
Oh, sure. This one?
Yeah. So on
Okay.
North Lake Drive, is there an island that's getting shaved?
There is an island that would, yeah, because of the, so the plan calls for moving the North Lake Drive entrance pretty much as far south as reasonable to to create some appropriate spacing. But yeah, the median on North Lake Drive does need to be modified to accommodate that left turn. So I should state there is a right-in, right-only onto Kemper Road. So the only left turn movement that's going to be allowed from this site is onto North Lake and to the signal.
Do we own North Lake or does the HOA?
I believe that,
We do.
yeah, I believe that is public.
Who's paying to shave the median then? That's another question.
That's
Are we being requested? to do
that's
it?
developer driven.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it'll be permitted. They'll have to get a permit.
Yep.
to us.
okay. All right. Major considerations. Our county comments are fairly standard comments from our own Sycamore Township maintenance superintendent. There's the requirement that a 7-foot walk be constructed along the Kemper Road portion of the site, as well as accommodations for a crosswalk at that right in, right out. So there is based on our calculations of the cost of that, the applicant has agreed to provide a check in the sum of $15,000 for toward the cost of installing that sidewalk, which will be part of a larger township project. Okay.
That's for all 431 feet.
Yes, sir.
It's 50%.
50. It's a 50%.
Yep.
For that construction. All right. With that being said, staff is generally favorable to the applicant's proposal. Should the Board of Trustees vote to approve, staff makes the following suggestions for conditions. 1, existing lots shall be consolidated prior to zoning compliance plan approval. Site shall not be utilized for telecommunication towers in the future. Site shall not be used for off-site advertising signs in the future or billboards. 4, a variance shall be granted for dumpster setback as part of the PUD2 approval. 5, a variance shall be granted for outdoor lighting intensity per photometric plan as part of the PUD2 approval. I should have talked about that, I apologize. There was a photometric plan submitted as preliminary photometric plan submitted as part of this. There was no light spillage onto private property. However, the intensity of 0.5 was hit or exceeded going on to both Kemper Road and North Lake. Because those are going onto public roads, there's no negative impact to their photometric plan. So. Then finally, number 6, signage shall be designed consistent with section 13-11 of the Sycamore Township zoning resolution. All other provisions of chapter 13 signs shall remain in effect. Well, I need to go back and talk about that. And then 7, applicant shall provide a payment to Sycamore Township in the amount of $15,000 for the construction of a 7-foot walk at the face of curb along the frontage of East Kemper Road with a curb ramp at North Lake Drive to cross Kemper. Sidewalk and curb ramp will follow ODOT and Hamilton County standards. Sidewalk shall be constructed through the proposed driveway and be installed as a township project. So because of the underlying zoning, this is in the F district. The F district significantly limits the ability to properly sign these within both the E and O districts, our retail and office districts. We allow for signage for each one of the spaces. So the O district would allow for 1 square foot of signage per unit at a rate of 0.5 linear feet of the frontage of the unit. So if you have a 30-foot unit, you're going to get 15 square feet of space. So it's a lower standard than the retail. It's the office, so it's a slightly lower intensity. But each unit that's going to be owner occupied is going to essentially have their own wall signage allocation. There are marquee signs at both entrances of the project, as well as a development sign at the northeastern corner. So these will be small marquee style signs that in and of themselves, they meet our standards for both area and height, as well as aesthetics. Okay.
Go back to the placement of those. Where are they?
Sure. So you have one within the green space along North Lake, and then another placement.
Okay, far enough back, no visibility
And we'll
concerns.
just have to
So,
make sure those are out of the site triangle.
Yeah.
right.
Again, which is why I reference, requiring the standards as set forth in Chapter 13.
Which they look
So
like they are.
those will
Yeah,
be
they
out of
do.
the site triangles.
Okay, anything else, Skylar?
That's all I have, unless there's any other questions.
Any questions for Skylar? Scott, you want to come up and give us your, anything that we
Anybody's going to
have?
testify in the public hearing, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Do you want to move through the slides, or?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Just the right arrow, the big button.
Good evening, Scott Lucky, Robert Lucky Group. This will be our address 8825 Chapel Square Drive, Cincinnati, Ohio 45249. This is an exciting project for us. This will be our fourth project in Sycamore Township. Really looking forward to a project like this. It's kind of unique where I'm not in an area where there's a lot of residential houses around me, and going through a zoning change from R1 to a commercial use. So it's kind of refreshing to have to go through this. But I'm really excited for this project. Obviously, we did two office condos across the street. Both we had discussed have sold out. These buildings are a little bit different in design on the elevations from across the street, and it's all kind of aligning with what we're doing on the front building, because the front building is kind of unique for us. We typically do a lot more office space. This has a lot more frontage on Kemper Road, so we were looking at doing this as more of a boutique retail type space. It might become office space, but it's got more of a retail look versus the glass that we typically do. So the elevations are slightly different. Roof lines are very similar. And then the restaurant cafe on the corner was one of those things that pretty excited for this mixed use. I think it brings a good amenity to the area. A lot of the surrounding neighbors in that area and the HOA board that I talked to were pretty excited to see an amenity outside of the Silver Spring House to go to. So they're really excited, and actually that was a really big challenge I thought it was going to be with the HOA back there, because this is designated in the HOA to just be office. So being able to do a restaurant / cafe, and then a little bit of a boutique retail, and getting that approved through the HOA was really nice to see. A couple things that Skylar that you talked about in your presentation. You mentioned owner occupied. For the most part, the buildings that we build are about 85% owner occupied. The intent is to build them and to sell them. In some cases, they do get leased, so I didn't, you mentioned that, so there's a chance they could be not owner occupied. But our intent's try to keep it that way. A couple other things on this site. Skylar, you mentioned it. I just want to make note that we did talk about it a little bit, and the drainage coming in from Gold Coast, which is on the opposite side of Yeah, where Skylar's kind of
Yeah, these
pointing right now.
properties.
There's a lot of drainage coming from Gold Coast to the property that's supposed to go to the south. Right now, it doesn't do that. Our intent is to help out the best we can in that situation, but there is a private drainage easement that runs along that property line. I have talked to the owners next to the property, and the owner, particularly to the west of our site, is concerned about the drainage in that area. And so I did meet with him, talk to him, explain to him that it's supposed to go to the south. Our intent is to actually improve the situation, but the drainage easement is in place. So I just want to make note that if you do get a call from the guy who's over there, he is aware that our intentions are good. He is aware of our history in the township and what we're here for. So he was very positive on the site as well. Let's see. On the dumpsters, again, Skylar, you mentioned that a little bit. The dumpster for the restaurant being in the corner, we really didn't have another location for that unless we were up closer to the Kemper Road. We do enclose all of our dumpsters in brick that matches the materials of the building, so they will be presented and look appropriate for the site. And then also the drive-through. I know the drive-through was mentioned at the zoning meeting and was kind of frowned upon. The whole intent of the drive-through is, I think, COVID's changed the world we're in today. A lot of people want that ability to have that access. Do I see this as a full-blown restaurant, or I call it McDonald's or Arby's? No, I don't see that as a site. But I do want the ability for people to do pickup and be able to pick it up and go. I think is an amenity that we're going to see moving forward on a lot of sites. So we are strongly hoping that we can get the drive-through to go through. Landscaping, you mentioned on the south side, Philip Edison. I did meet with the owner of Philip Edison, who's to the south. He is allowing us a grading easement to get into his property to actually lower the buildings, to keep them lower out of the ground, which he was excited about, not seeing a multi-story building to block their building in the back. And as Skylar mentioned, there is landscaping there, but we are going to have kind of a hillside, kind of tell with the grading lines a little bit. So our site will sit lower. And so planting trees on there, you're planting them on a hillside or in a swale, and it's just one of those things we didn't think about at that time. Let's see what else. This is not a rendering of. This is actually the rendering across the street. So they are going to be a little bit different. That's all right.
Okay,
I see.
yeah,
So
you know
good now.
what?
It's
Now-
kind of hard. It's kind of hard to tell whether they're
Now that you say
renderings or
that,
photos.
I see.
yeah,
you see
Kids
Kids
First.
First in the background.
All right. So this is across the street, but our buildings, again, as you can see, are going to be very similar, just a little bit more glass on the front than we have in the past. That'll take any questions that you guys have.
Questions?
So your cafe restaurant, do you envision that to be a lunch and dinner, breakfast, lunch, 3 meals a day? What
Lunch
kind of
and
feedback
dinner.
were you getting from the neighborhood, so to speak?
Lunch and dinner.
Lunch and dinner.
Lunch and dinner? Okay. Question for Skylar, and you may have some input on this. Do we have any zoning distinction between categories of drive-through, or is it just on or off, basically?
No. The only area of the township that we actually have a prohibition on drive-throughs is actually in Kenwood with the SBI overlay district. So we don't make a we also don't make a distinction in our code for restaurant versus drive-through restaurant versus, there's nothing called fast food, so.
What about hours of operation, on the other hand? Is that something we have control over,
You can't set that as a condition.
I just wonder if
Yeah.
Tom,
But
as
you're-
a neighbor, would want a late-night Taco Bell, for example, as opposed to Graders or some fancy thing.
In the middle of an industrial
really
district
affect anybody there,
along Kemper Road, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if this was adjacent to a residential area, I could certainly see that.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
Scott, when we had talked, you'd also mentioned that you might keep the pad, the restaurant yourself. Is that still part of the plan?
That's the intention.
So you just own it and lease it?
Yeah.
Okay. That's another one of my questions. The dumpster in the front yard, we'd like to figure out a landscape around that. The other ones are okay, but that one, we probably need to figure out how to landscape it, so you can work with staff as to how we get that done. I don't know if you want to put that in as a condition, or, but,
If you want to leave it ambiguous to, and for staff to make the final
yeah,
call,
I'm fine with that.
we can, I can word something.
Okay.
One of the HOA, when I go in for signage approval, it was mentioned to me from one of the businesses in the back about signage. And they ideally would like to have some signage associated with this. I have a feeling when I go back for signage approval through them, they're going to ask me to help them out on installing a sign.
So where are you thinking about, on the corner?
Well,
North Lake and,
So, do you have the sign that I'd sent? May not be a part of that.
I didn't see it, but let me see.
On the corner of North Lake and Kemper,
yeah,
we are doing a radius sign that was going to say just North Lake Commons, and I really don't want to have anything else on it.
I got you.
And so, and then on the sign to the south, or I'm sorry, yeah, to the south, and the one to the north, are going to identify the businesses in here. Where I'm struggling with is I'm trying to figure out how to accommodate the HOA back there and putting some signage associated without trying to clutter it up.
Gotcha.
So if I could, I'm mentioning it
Well,
because if I could, is there
So
ability to work with?
are you talking about signage here at the corner for the development saying North Lake Commons? Or are you talking about Phillips Edison as an example on this sign?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not talking, I'm hoping to have neither.
Okay.
I'm going to
Yeah.
go through a process that I
Yeah.
think is going to require
Right.
potentially.
So unless the business is actually situated on this site, you can't have another business on here. That would, even if it was 5 square feet, it would constitute an off-site sign.
Happy
So-
to have that in the.
Yeah, that's a great to go back on.
Is there a code number for
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
What's the
Comment
factor?
3 is site shall not be used for off-site advertising signs in the future. So
Okay.
you
And
can,
I
you
think
can
we-
tell Phillips Edison that they
It's not,
can't,
it's.
they can't use your sign.
I think we should include billboard on that language as well. Just,
Yeah.
I know you don't want to put a billboard on there, but
Right.
Yeah.
the next guy
That's-
might.
Again, I referenced the specific language, off-site advertising, because that's how it's referenced in the zoning code.
Yeah.
I think it looks great. The only thing I got heartburn on is the drive-through. We've always, I think, I agree that during COVID there was an issue, but I think COVID's gone, dead, for practical purposes. And I've always had, I've been around it 28 years. I've always had heartburn with drive-throughs, and that's one of the reasons why I'm part of Kenwood you can't even have one. But I like the plan. I think it looks great, and I think the kind of excited about the pad there for a restaurant as well. So.
Yeah, and I'm not as concerned about a drive-through, I suppose, if it's what it sounds like you're envisioning. I'm thinking of something like the Graters in Kenwood, for example, which does have a tasteful drive-through and tasteful site design there. There's a difference depending on what goes in there, of course. We can't restrict who your tenant might be or who your purchaser might be if you sell it, but
I think a lot of municipalities have been trying to scale back drive-throughs for quite some time. But in Mr. Lucky's defense, he is accurate that there is a post-COVID desire for pickup, carry-out, DoorDash, that type of delivery / order, come pick it up. Is there any middle ground where we can ask him to come back with, if he has a proposed tenant or proposed purchaser? Does our code permit that, or is it all or nothing?
Well, we can condition it today without it, but if he came back and, correct, Skylar? He could come back and actually ask us to make a change.
You could. I think the intent of the application was to, this would be the largest, most intense use on the site, and if the building was scaled down, if it was a smaller restaurant, or as long as it fit the parameters of this, it could be approved as a minor adjustment.
So what happens when Taco Bell or Arby's wants to come in here and put a drive-through in? We're stuck.
You're stuck.
Yeah, I mean,
That's why
A
I was wondering if there's a
drive-through
middle
would be a
ground.
minor adjustment in the future, wouldn't it, Skylar?
Please.
I mean, if they approved it without a drive-through, and then a plan was put in to
Well,
include a drive-through.
the problem is that if we put a condition on this resolution that says no drive-throughs, then the only way you overturn that no drive-through condition is a major adjustment to the PUD. And the applicant is back in front of zoning commission and the board of trustees.
so
I mean,
Is that a major addition or a minor addition?
that sounds like
that's
a
a
minor
major
to me.
adjustment.
Really?
Because I'm thinking like if it's a Panera
The
Bread or
reason is
something like
that
that,
it
I
is-
mean, that has a drive-through.
It is a direct
or a
conflict
Starbucks or
with the resolution. So if you're shrinking it, if you're moving setbacks, there's a lot of leeway for a minor adjustment that can be administratively approved. But if it's specifically prohibited in the approving resolution, then it can only be updated and modified by major
How about
adjustment.
drive-through prohibited with except for if they come back?
There you go.
Here's
That's
a
minor
question.
adjustment.
Well, you're in the midst of an HOA here also. What specifically have they approved? You said they banned restaurants before anyway. Have they approved?
They approved the, as per the plan that we're
With the
seeing.
drive-through.
So it just says restaurant,
Just says
cafe.
restaurant, cafe.
And I have a feeling they would be upset if I came back with a Taco Bell, but to your guys' point, I understand it doesn't say no,
Right.
and they don't, they've approved it like that, so I get it if it's like, hey, Scott, if you're not here, who's coming in down the road from you to
Right.
be able to
Right.
do that?
I mean, if we forget about the drive-through for a second, if we require a restaurant or food establishment to provide, in total area, 40% area is required for dining area. You're not that's gonna kind of throw out a lot of the newer prototype fast food restaurants that are maximizing, drive-through
No seating.
over dine-in.
Yeah.
Your new prototype. Maybe only McDonald's would probably be the one that still has the large, dine-in area, but this site probably isn't big enough for a McDonald's. So, if you're worried about Taco Bell, Taco Bell's probably not going to fit that model. So, forget about conditioning the drive-through. You're going to limit it based on dine-in area. They have to provide a minimum dine-in area. Then you're going to get that's how you're going to get the Panera Bread, the cafe area. If those conditions can't be met, then he can come back in for a major adjustment. It gives him the flexibility of the drive-through as subordinate to the dine-in cafe.
Leary,
I think if we said something, drive-through prohibited subject to application for a minor adjustment in the future,
as I was just going to say,
Okay,
then we could,
yeah,
I could give an opinion that would be a minor adjustment.
that would be great.
that's
Yep,
exactly what I was just going to
we
say.
can do that.
That works for you.
Is that okay?
No McDonald's, no Burger King.
We should note for the record, so we don't hear from
I'm
their
teasing.
lawyers, Taco
Yeah,
Bell
sorry.
is an example of a
That's right.
late-night drive-through operation only.
Okay, any other questions? As I look out on the audience, it doesn't appear as anybody's here to speak to this issue, so if there are no other questions from the board, we will, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Did we want to talk about the raised right-in, right-out median?
Yeah, we might as well while we're here. Absolutely. I think we have an agreement.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's okay, so.
Well, we talked about that before we went on the record, though, with him. So the agreement was
That will
for
be a
that to
condition.
Concrete, conditioned, right in, right
Yeah,
out.
there will be a raised median delineating right-in and right-out on Kemper Road.
And that will be one of the conditions.
Yep, that'll be number 10.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay.
Thanks.
If there are no other questions, we will close the public hearing, and we will open our scheduled meeting
2 minutes.
in 5 minutes.
Oh, 5 minutes. Wow.
There we go.
There we go. All right.
Call our meeting to order. Everybody would please rise for the invocation read by Administrator Tracy Kellums.
Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord, as we make decisions that might affect the community. And continue to remind us that all we do here tonight, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and for the service of humanity. And as we approach the new year, let us take a few minutes to reflect with gratitude on all that we have been given in life, our family, our friends, and the community. And let us look forward to the new year with a renewed sense of purpose and hope, whether our impact is to be big or small, affecting many or affecting one. Let our time, talents, and treasures to make a difference in the world. In your name we pray.
Everybody please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If Mr. Porter would note that all three trustees are present. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes from December 2nd special trustee meeting. Do we have a motion?
I move we approve the December 2nd special meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwegman?
Aye.
Mr. Weaver?
Aye. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the December 6th meeting. Do we have a motion?
I move we approve the December 6th trustee meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwegman?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye. Okay, next item on the agenda is the appointment of Jonathan Dieters as our new fiscal officer.
Sorry, question, Mr. Chairman. In our packet, we have minutes from the Records Commission meeting. Also, it's not on the agenda, but do we need to approve those?
Do you need a motion to add them to the agenda?
Pardon me?
Do you need a motion to add them to the agenda? And then
No, I don't think you need to add them to the agenda. You probably ought to have a motion.
Take a motion?
To approve.
Okay.
And you two are the only members.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Aye. Mr. Weedman?
Aye. Okay, next item on the agenda is appointment of Jonathan T. Dieters as fiscal officer. We do have a resolution.
We do have a resolution appointing Jonathan T. Dieters as fiscal officer.
Do we have a motion?
I move we approve the resolution.
I second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion?
I'll just note we had, for the record, we had two applicants for this, two highly qualified people from the community here. The board's consensus after interviewing them was that Mr. Dieters seemed to be the best choice. We haven't voted on this yet. This is the vote here tonight with the resolution, but I'm looking forward to welcoming him to the panel up here once we get past this and Mr. Porter has retired.
Yeah, that, just to note, it's effective February 1st.
February 1st, that's correct.
The resolution says that.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwegman?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye. Congratulations, John.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
Welcome.
You know what? Can we get a picture? We might as well get a picture for the website.
This is one I want to be in.
Tall people in the middle.
All right, on the count of threes. 1, 2, 3. Fiduciary.
Fiduciary.
There we go.
All right.
We're good.
Thank you. Congratulations, Sean.
Give me a call.
And John's got something he's got to go to, so that's why he's not going to stick around, but, okay, next item on the agenda is public comments. Do we have any?
I don't believe anybody signed up.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, planning and zoning report.
Okay, the first thing I have is a resolution from case number 2022-15P. I'm actually
I've got the actual resolution itself approved, or excuse me, written. It says a resolution approving a PUD 2 for Robert Lucky Group and Sycamore Township and dispensing with a second reading. And this references the parcel ID and address of the site. Let's see. This resolution does reference approval with conditions. The conditions read as follows. 1, existing lots shall be consolidated prior to zoning compliance plan approval. 2, site shall not be utilized for telecommunication towers in the future. 3, site shall not be used for off-site advertising, signs, or billboards in the future. A variance shall be granted for dumpster setback as part of the PUD 2 approval. And additional landscaping shall be approved at the discretion of staff. Township staff. A variance shall be granted for outdoor lighting intensity per photometric plan as part of this PUD 2 approval. 6, signage shall be designed consistent with section 13-11 of the Sycamore Township zoning resolution, which is what references the office district signage. All other provisions of Chapter 13 signs shall remain in effect. Therefore, placement of freestanding signs, setback out of line of sight, shall remain in effect. Number 7, applicant shall provide a payment to Sycamore Township in the amount of $15,000 for the construction of a 7-foot walk at the face of curb along the frontage of East Kemper Road, with a curb ramp at North Lake Drive to cross Kemper. Cross Kemper Road. Sidewalk and curb ramp will follow ODOT and Hamilton County standards. Sidewalk shall be constructed through the proposed driveway and be installed as a township project. And let's see. 8 is a raised median shall delineate the right-in, right-out access point on East Kemper Road. Is there any others?
We discussed drive-through.
You should be up to 10.
Yeah. I consolidated a couple of them. It
Okay.
wasn't fully 10. Come on, fingers.
So Larry, while he's typing that,
Sorry.
that'll still come back in front of the trustees, is that correct? We can make it come back in front of the trustees as a condition?
Does
Well,
a minor
A
amendment goes-
minor is a minor is a staff level administrative approval. If you want it to go back in front of the Board of Trustees, it's
Gotta
a
be
major
major.
adjustment.
Okay,
So
okay.
Do you want it to come back to the trustees?
Well, I don't want to force them to come back for a major modification, so we may have the ability to make our feelings known to our staff as it relates to a minor, depending upon what the applicant.
Right, the problem with the major is it has to go to the zoning commission and
Yeah,
all that.
exactly. We don't want them to
Yeah.
do that.
A drive-through shall require a minor adjustment to the PUD at the discretion, and approved at the discretion of the township administrator or zoning official.
Yeah, because the way this reads, it makes it sound like it's the discretion of the township administrator as to whether or not it requires
Let's see.
a drive-through.
The drive-through shall require a minor adjustment to the PUD.
You need your
Okay.
approval in there.
Why don't we
And
say a
the,
drive-through is prohibited, subject to?
I like that language
I
better.
think it's clearer.
A drive-through shall be prohibited, subject to an application for a minor adjustment to the PUD.
I'm not sure if that's good wording either. A drive-through shall
Yeah.
be prohibited, but the township administrator shall have authority to grant a minor adjustment to
a
the.
drive-through
It
shall
doesn't
be
say anything
prohibited,
to allow it.
subject to a
Doesn't
minor
say-
adjustment
just
to
a
the
minor
PUD.
adjustment to the PUD, however,
Which
minor
falls.
adjustments occur.
Well, yeah, true, but
Yeah.
I didn't want to say that the township administrator.
I don't either.
Could simply just,
yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
because you may change how a
you want
minor
them to
adjustment
make
is.
an application, then everybody will know.
Right, I'm just saying the wording, a drive-through shall be prohibited subject to a minor adjustment. I'm not sure that's crystal clear.
Subject to an approved minor adjustment to the PUD.
That works.
And then however
Okay.
we internally determine how a minor adjustment approved, then it's approved.
Okay, so,
good?
so do we have a
Should we
resolution?
say unless an approved minor adjustment to the PUD is granted? That way it's prohibited unless, as opposed to subject to.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Say that one more time.
Prohibited unless an approved minor adjustment to the PUD is granted.
Okay.
Good? All right.
You've got two periods at the end of 4 also, by the way.
I'm sorry, where am I?
End of item 4,
Oh, thank you.
and should that say township zoning staff or staff?
You still do.
Still there, I'm working on it.
Okay, we have a,
It's that township staff is fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
we have a resolution with 9 conditions. Do we have a motion?
I move we approve the resolution as presented here in its final form.
A second?
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwagman?
Aye.
Ms. Weaver?
Aye.
And obviously, we don't have that now. Please don't leave without signing it.
All right. I'll grab that at break.
Skylar, next item.
Okay, next item. We have a public nuisance at 4608 Kugler Mill Road. This entails weeds, brush, rubbish under, this is a public nuisance under 505.87. This is owner occupied. While they have been responsive, they haven't successfully completed a cleanup. So this has been ongoing for the last 3 months. And let me jump to the pictures real quick. Accumulation. This is while it's dead now, it's still tall grass and weeds. Junk in the rear yard. Rubbish that hasn't been cleaned up. Okay. So unless there's any questions,
You mentioned in your report the owner said something about having surgery and that interfering. Was that a while back or was that
oh
recent?
yeah, these are Kevin's comments. Talked to the owner. She said they had to have surgery and that she should have it cleaned up and removed with the brush tall weeds. Baby pool bikes on the trailer still lies in the rear yard.
I think that was very early on, which is why this is kind of dragged on for three months. They've had sufficient time to clean up. This is not high intensity work. This is just picking up your yard.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I have a resolution providing for and authorizing removal of vegetation, garbage, refuse, and other debris, and declaring a nuisance for the property located at 4608 Kugler Mill Road, Sycamore Township, Ohio, 45236.
I move we approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwagman?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
Okay. Unless there's any questions for me, the only thing I have left is to say that this is officially my last trustee meeting with this board. I have accepted a position as township administrator for Delhi Township. I will be taking on that position, starting January 12th. I want you all to know that it's been an absolute pleasure to work with all of you, a privilege to be a part of this staff and this family, and an honor to serve this community. So thank you very much for these 3 years. I thought it would be longer, but life has a funny way of throwing things at you, and here we are. So I'm truly grateful to every one of you. So thank you very much.
Congratulations, you'll be missed.
Congratulations, yeah, absolutely. You've done a great job.
Yeah, you've been a bright, shining light here. So thanks for all you've done. Go on to great success.
Okay, Sheriff Patrol, report. Mike,
I don't have anything tonight. Just wanted to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and hope everyone has a safe holiday.
same to you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
EMS and fire, so the chief had to go out to a fire. We did get some information on the equipment and a request for a new engine and a new squad. And I would like to, even if he was here, I was gonna ask that we take some time to digest some of these numbers and get back to this at our next meeting. So we can move straight through that. I don't think, you did get the November report from the chief. And other than that, I think he's up to date. So we'll move on from EMS and fire unless anybody has any questions. Roads maintenance recreation report, Mr. Kellums.
Leaf pickup
Is over.
I hear silent cheers coming from,
I hear we might get some snow.
Just in time for snow this
Just
weekend.
in time for snow.
Oof.
We all ready for snow. They broke down trucks today. Got them prepared for snow, so it's ready from one season to the next. We are well stocked with salt this year, so we should not have a problem there. We just ordered some calcium chloride today, so we're ready, set to go. So there should be no problem.
now you've done it. Now you've jinxed it, so, okay.
Leave it on you.
So other than that, I do have a resolution. As you know, we went out to bid on the contract for Montgomery Road. So I have a resolution approving and authorizing a contract for the Montgomery Road Sidewalk Improvement Project, which is Stewart Road to Ken Arbor Drive, and dispensing with a second reading. And this was, the low bid was given by Lead Construction, $713,611.57, and that was considerably lower
That's great.
than the bids that we were expecting and our engineer estimate. And we had about 6 bids and all good companies, everybody that we've worked with before, and we're pleased that Alita got it. And there is a grant on this also, as you know.
Is there any reason to think it's unrealistically low if it was substantially lower than the others? I don't want to pay more, but.
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay. I move we approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? I think there was somebody pretty close to that, too, if I remember correctly.
There was one
Yeah.
close to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rack and Ballard, who had done Cougar Mill for us, they were close.
Yep.
Very close.
Okay, motion is second. If no further discussion, Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwagman?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye. Trace, anything else?
No, that's all I have unless you have questions.
Just something to mention to you that'll probably be on our radar again soon. There's a group in Heitmeyer Farms who are concerned about power outages. This is a recurring thing in our neighborhood there, of course. 2 weeks ago in our meeting here, my youngest son was frantically texting me in the middle of the meeting to tell me that something blew up in the yard behind us. Limb fell on a tree there, took down the entire area out of power again until they fixed that particular transformer. About a year and a half ago, Duke gave us some information about tree cutting projects they had going on and a re-something project, I forget what it was now, as well in the area. But maybe if we can get an update from them on that, and I think we'll be hearing from some residents about that soon too, so maybe we can be ready to respond to that. So, thanks.
Will do. I'll check on that.
Okay, Law Director report. Larry?
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Administrator report, Mr. Gillums.
Okay, well, the first thing that I have sent to all of you agreement and some paperwork from Focus Capital Solutions. As you know, Focus Capital Solutions worked for us for quite a few years. That contract was ended. I think this has a lot of value. We've talked about in past meetings about TIFs and the extension of TIFs that happened through this and has given the township a lot of money. In fact, we would have had a chance perhaps to extend those even farther if we'd have had a consultant at the time. I don't know if the then administration knew about it or not, but I never heard about it, that there was a chance to extend those TIFs even farther than they were. So I think it's important to have somebody that knows what's going on for us in Columbus. I think it's a huge value.
So you have a resolution?
I do not have a resolution.
I thought you did here. Let me see.
No, we were going to ask.
We're going to go for a motion.
No,
Okay.
sorry.
Do we have a motion?
Are we, tell me, what are we moving? What are we asking to do?
What's the name of the contract? Do you have
Is there a
the
contract here?
Yeah, I believe, did you receive a copy
It's
of it?
Focus Capital
I
Solutions.
did. I mean, I received an email copy of it. It just
Consulting
wasn't part of the packet, I don't think. So I didn't know if there was something that had changed with it, but
I think what you would need would be a motion to approve the contract with Focused Capital Solutions LLC Consulting Services Agreement.
Okay.
I would move to approve what Larry just said. The contract as presented for Focus Capital Solutions.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Any further discussion?
Yes, I do have some questions and some concerns I want to raise here. And Mr. Glover's here. I don't know if he wanted to present to the board about anything as part of this, as to why we should consider this. I'd certainly like to hear from him as to this, though. I think Tom has some prepared comments about it here, too, so I'd be interested to hear my fellow trustees' thoughts. Sure.
Well, thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here. When Tracy talks about that person in Columbus, I am that individual. I've had a long-term relationship off and on with the township, with Sycamore Township. I also, and you may have some information in front of you that describes what I've done, the offer I can present to Sycamore Township, my experience in that area. But I am the Managing Director of Focus Capital Solutions. We are an affiliate, if you will, or a subsidiary of the Taft Law Firm. We have provided these type of services for about 15 years now throughout Ohio, primarily Columbus and Southwest Ohio. It is a business model that's now been adopted by many other large law firms throughout Ohio. A client may have a need not just for our services, but for legal services as well. In terms of the services I can provide, again, I think you might have some information in front of you. Let me just illuminate, if I could, 2 or 3 priority areas where I think it'd be helpful to the township, but more importantly, where I also have that experience and that success in other areas as well. One, of course, is the biannual State of Ohio capital budget. One that was just concluded this year. It comes up every 2 years. The next one will be in 2024. But as you look down the list there, you'll see a number of capital projects we've been able to secure for other political jurisdictions in Southwest Ohio. as well as other nonprofit organizations as well. It is a multi-billion-dollar budget presented by the state of Ohio. However, there's always a group of funds called community funds, about $200 to $300 million that are set aside for distribution by the state legislature. And when all the dust settles, just about every state legislator, every House member, and every senator gets a share or a project in their district. However, it's important to note that if you want to go forward with a project, and there are any number of projects you might think about, such as a Veterans Memorial. I've done work certainly in the city of Shermanville and also Delhi Township over the years. It's important that you link into and work closely with your delegation, because there's a lot of competition for these dollars. And that effort should usually begin in the fourth quarter of the year and go forward in the following year as well. So what you have is a process by which you develop a project. You vet it with local groups downtown, they prioritize it, and then they send that list to Columbus, Ohio. But needless to say, the long-term relationships that you can develop with your legislators can make a huge difference as well, because there's a lot of competition for those dollars. Moving forward, as I'm sure most of you well know as being members of the Township Trustees, there is the biannual every 2-year operating budget as well. And that also presents opportunities for those projects or those policy changes you might want in state law. It's interesting to note, though, we work with Ohio Township Association. We also work with Clout, and we also work individually with townships as well. Another budget that will be forthcoming soon, early next year, is what they call the ODOT every 2-year budget, Ohio Department of Transportation. That is a much quicker budget that will be introduced probably in early January and finished by March 31st. There are also opportunities there to highlight particular projects or, again, policy changes you might want. As an example, several years ago, we were able to get a provision for the city of Sharonville to do a planning study by ODOT to look at the railroad crossings they have in their city, and because of traffic problems that were developed as a result of those railroad crossings. Looking down the list, I'm going to be brief here. If you have more further questions or want more details, I'll be glad to do that. As was noted, we've been involved in several economic development maneuvers and legislation over the years regarding TIFs and JEDs as well. And finally, there is just a basic chore, if you will, the basic responsibility or accountability we have of monitoring legislation that we feel could impact Sycamore Township as well. Overarching all this is something that you might already know, you probably do, is how valuable it is to have long-term relationships with the members of your state delegation that represent you in Columbus, Ohio. And I work in a bipartisan, open fashion, Democrat, Republican, House or Senate. We're fortunate to have historically some very good legislators from Hamilton County that have served in leadership positions and also served on key committees and leadership within those committees to help us support our efforts in Hamilton County. I believe we'll continue to have that strong representation in Columbus as well in the next operating budget, certainly the next capital budget, and the next Ohio General Assembly, which begins in January of next year, which will be the 135th Ohio General Assembly. I'll pause now. I've covered a lot of information. Certainly willing to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. I just to piggyback on what George said, for our residents, we are township, and everything that we can and cannot do is dictated by the legislature. Unlike cities that can adopt their own charter, we cannot do that as a township. Even though we are a home rule, we have some advantages as a home rule township that other townships do not have. But by continuing to petition the legislature for additional opportunities to be more competitive with cities, it helps enhance our opportunities for economic development. George has been a very effective advocate for us in the past. To kind of quantify it, so we have 3 TIFs in Kenwood and 1 up north that were expiring after 30 years, and I had called George and said I wanted to extend those an additional 15 years at a 30-year-old value. Well, most people thought I was crazy because typically counties don't like to do that anyway. They're not really fond of the TIFs. But we had, so George said, well, let's just work on this. So George facilitated me in Columbus. I literally went from one legislator's office to the next. Do you remember that, George? He had 15 minutes in each one of these offices, and we were able to get legislation passed. I thought we had a really compelling argument. We even had at the time, the county commissioners bought into it and gave me a signed letter saying that they would support it because, as you probably know, sales tax comes, they get their revenue from sales tax, and we have the largest sales tax engine probably in the county, so with the Kenwood Town Center. So they were more than happy to go along with that. We got the 4 TIFs extended. And while I've been talking about this being about $50.5 million, we just did the math this afternoon with Debbie, and it actually is $74,625,000 over 15 years. That is money that we would not have coming to Sycamore Township without that extension. So we certainly thank you for that, George. As you know, we have 4 JEDs, and shortly after we passed the JEDs, Representative Schuring was not real happy because other communities passed them and really didn't use economic development as the reason for passing them, other than just revenue, I think. And so he was the original author of the JEDZs, and he was going to try to get legislation passed to abolish JEDZs. And so George said, look, we have some townships that these are important to, and we had already had ours, of course. But George actually had Representative Schuring come to Cincinnati. Representative Schuring asked for Greg Bickford and I to come meet with him. We met with him, and his new legislation for modifying the JEDDs, he took every one of our recommendations and put it in that legislation, which also passed. And there's great value. Look, if we have the ability to control our own destiny, that's one thing, but when the legislature controls our destiny, it's a whole totally different thing. We need to have an advocate who will advocate for us in Columbus, and George has demonstrated he does an excellent job. You know, we're talking about possibly putting in a new Veterans Memorial, and I know that you recently got $100,000 from the legislature for Fairfield Township. And so that's something we would certainly want to work on. And I think, as I mentioned, or as Tracy mentioned, you know, I think we got cut short on the additional 15 years on those TIF extensions, and we'd like to certainly work on that and see if we can't get that resolved as well. So there are a lot of great opportunities, but we need somebody to be our eyes and ears in Columbus, and George has demonstrated he does a great job, and I'm all for this. So,
Tom, can I pick up on one point you said?
Yes.
To pick up on the Jed Z issue, if you will, when Representative Schuring came to Campbell County, he also specifically met with Springfield Township, and he extended that deadline in his bill to allow Springfield Township to have that vote. They adopted Jed Z, and then the deadline hit, and that was it. So there's another example where one township benefited greatly by the actions of one legislator. Let me also, while economic development is obviously very important to every political jurisdiction, there's been another bill that's been introduced in the current Ohio General Assembly. It did not get enacted. It was not expected to, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with that. That is legislation that's been co-sponsored by 2 of our area state representatives that will increase the contributions by all political jurisdictions for police and fire. I believe it's House Bill 512. You should expect that bill to come back again next year. It will be, and it may become part of the state budget. Who knows at this point in time? But there's an example where it cuts across all political lines, so we can work on our local townships and our local municipalities to band together and provide a stronger voice to hopefully modify that bill when it's reintroduced to the Ohio General Assembly next year. So I'll stop there.
George, thank you. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
Yeah, I just have a comment. I've never worked with Mr. Glover or his firm on any of these types of projects, but I will tell you that I have worked with firms similar to what Mr. Glover does in my professional capacity, and to have someone that understands the lay of the land, has their ear to the ground, knows where the opportunities lie, where the threats might be, where the obstacles might be, how to navigate those, is tremendously helpful when you're trying to advance an initiative, or if you are looking to advance a capital project or secure funding for a particular capital project, or even understanding where there might be pools of money in a particular agency or
or funds that are coming down from the federal government, to be able to tap into those. And if you just don't know about them at the local level, you're never going to tap into it. And I think it's important to recognize that our residents here in Sycamore Township are paying taxes to the state year in and year out and year in and year out. And by having someone representing the township in Columbus, it provides us the opportunity to recapture some of those dollars and bring them back home to the benefit of our residents. So in my mind and my professional experience, having someone like Mr. Glover and his firm can be tremendously helpful in more than one way. And for $24,000 a year, I think it's an investment well worth our time and energy.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes, I'll just note it's funny. Every time Tracy speaks before me, I get to say, I agree with what you said. So let me join in with that. I think you provide a very valuable service. I think you have in the past. I do have a few questions and a few things I wanted to air as the board considers this, because your contract with the township wasn't known to all of the trustees just before I took office. One of them didn't know the township had a lobbyist on retainer at the time and was surprised to learn it a couple of years ago. We didn't renew your contract shortly after that, but we had the option to engage you on an as-needed basis then, and I think we did that a few times, and the prior administrator said you were very valuable with what you did there too. So that's good to know. Lobbying on behalf of the township, or asking for things on behalf of the township, of course, reflects a decision by the decision makers in the township as to what should be lobbied for. I just want to note that's something that it's the board's purview to decide those things, not necessarily the administrator or one trustee excluding others. So I do want to ask, assuming we approve this resolution, and I think that's likely here, or approve the contract rather, that in your reporting and your monitoring, would you ensure that your reports are going to all three of the trustees in addition to whatever other conduit we give you? We can't have a dialogue that way without having a public meeting, but we can receive the valuable information you've got and then provide input to you, so we can all make use of you there. Occasionally there are going to be things that the trustees disagree upon. Some of the things you've lobbied for the township for in the past have been things that I know at least one other trustee at the time didn't agree with as to certain things with TIFs, and didn't even know what was going on. And that's not on you, certainly. That's on the township, but that wasn't proper. So I want to make sure that we all know what priorities we're setting for you, and that we all have a voice in that. We may not agree on what it should be, and we might vote 2-1 on some of that, but it's something we should vote on. Because lobbying decisions, as I said, are matters of policy, and we decide policy. I do have a question, and I don't mean this to come across the wrong way either, I guess, but this is not our money we're spending on you, of course. It's the township taxpayers' money, which we want to multiply, and I anticipate it will. You're charging us $2,000 a month under this contract that you've proposed. What are you doing differently or planning to do differently for us than for Delhi Township, who just approved a contract with you for $1,500 a month for exactly the same terms? What more are we getting for our 33% extra?
Let me back up for a moment. We now use the word or term advocating.
Advocating, excuse me. Okay.
That's a fair question. And by the way, to your earlier point about collaboration and communication within all three of the trustees, in every other political jurisdiction I represent, be it a trustee or another municipality, we always have an open dialogue. I tell the trustees, you have my cell phone, you have my open information, you have my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. I will tell you, occasionally that happens. More than likely, I usually work through the appropriate administrator, who then communicates to the trustees. But certainly I receive phone calls from individual trustees or other public officials as well. So I'm open to that. Happy to give you my cell phone at any time during the week or during the weekend. So that has happened in the past. That's not a problem. But I understand your point. That's, I think, well received. In terms of, if you will, a difference between different political jurisdictions, there has been a strong emphasis, as identified by Trustee Wiedemann, on economic development projects for this township that, yes, can impact other political jurisdictions as well, but they've been initiated by this township and not necessarily initiated by other townships. That means we have to take the lead and spend extra time and effort, be it meetings in Columbus or down here with our legislators. So when somebody comes to me and says, let's talk about a change in JED law or TIF law or JED Z, that's fine, but that's going to take a certain amount of effort and energy that isn't always in place for another political jurisdiction. Tom identified the effort we went through with Representative Shuren, going up to Columbus and coming down here as well. That's just extra time and effort we have to spend for the right reasons, for the right purpose. So a lot of it is identified by what are your initiatives, that type of thing as well.
Oh, that would be true also, even just for capital projects. Not everybody's going to have the same capital project
Absolutely.
that they're
Sure.
pursuing as well.
But I
Or
had
any,
to ask,
for that
I
matter.
surveyed the other jurisdictions in the area you do work for, and several of them you do charge $2,000 per month. Delhi was the outlier at $1,500. I think Sharonville was $1,875, but you also work for their convention center separately. And so I had to ask what value we're getting for the money. It sounds like we're getting value for the money here, certainly, though. And
Are you taking notes on that?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
wave to the camera. Yeah. So,
I'm getting the deal.
well, it sounds like Tom did a lot of the work too.
Hey, George,
I never got an invoice from Tom.
George, to the point of communication, I don't think it's probably a good idea for you to communicate to all three trustees. I think you made the point, you should be communicating with the administrator. The administrator will pass that information on. So I think that's a good way to do it, number one. Number two, let me just address one thing Mr. James said. He said one of the previous trustees didn't even know that we had you under contract. Well, that same trustee, for probably 2 years, signed the check every month to you. And that's one of the reasons why I've been so adamant about trustees signing checks instead of us having an electronic signature, so that if you have a question, and Mr. Kellums will tell you, it seems like every time I come in here, I've got a question about a check or two, I'll ask questions about it, and I've always set them aside and then gone and asked the right people. But the previous trustee signed these checks and didn't even ask a question, what is this and what's this for? And so I'm not sure that we can blame anything else that was going on. I kind of blame the trustee who signs the checks and doesn't ask questions, so for whatever that's worth.
Well,
So.
Trustee Weidman, here's the good news. Your checks never bounce. That's a really good thing.
Well, we're hoping you'll help us keep it that way, so.
Yeah, right, exactly. Keep bringing the money in.
And my point in raising these things is not to cast blame on anyone, but just to make sure going forward things work smoothly. If Mr. Kellums is going to forward on your communications to all of us, great. I don't see any harm in you CCing us on communications either, though. If you're monitoring developments in the legislature, let us all know. I think that's important to do, and I'd encourage you to do that.
Mr. James, this suggests that Mr. LaBarbera was not aware of it, and it was our fault for not telling him. It's kind of ridiculous when he signed these checks every single month for 2 years.
I'm telling you what he reported.
So if you're attempting to not cast blame on people, it sounds like you are, for whatever that's worth. But we'll move on.
I'll just suggest look back at our February 18th, 2020 meeting
We have
minutes and early April 2020 if need be. But again, let's not cast blame on people.
Only when it's convenient, right, Tom? Only when it's convenient to do so.
Let's just ensure we have good communications going forward. And I look forward to working with George on that. I think he'll do well for us.
Okay, we have a motion.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah, George, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter.
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwagman?
Aye.
Mr. Weidman?
Aye. George, welcome back. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. I
Thank
look
you.
forward to the
Looking
opportunity.
forward
Look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Same to you.
Okay, Tracy, you're still up?
Okay, I have another resolution, a resolution adopting appropriations for calendar year 2023, dispensing with the second reading and declaring an emergency. I believe you all received a copy of this. This is our budget for 2023. This also includes all our capital. It also includes the fiscal office, budget in it also.
I move we approve the resolution.
A second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I do have a question, and I know the chief had to leave earlier, and now he's back, and I don't know if we'll get back to the equipment discussion again tonight or in a future meeting, but is any of that covered in these appropriations at this point? Or any portion of that?
It is in the capital.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Any further question, any questions, any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwagman?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye. Tracy?
Okay, so purchase orders over $5,000. I have one. It's purchase order 22-107-4. This is for repairs for engine 92 in the amount of $7,360.19. And this is to Cummins Sales and Service, and this is coming out of the fire budget.
I move we approve the purchase order number 22-107-4.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwagman?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye.
That's all I have, sir.
Okay. I'm just going to go back to, the chief is back now. Chief, we decided to table that and give us an opportunity to digest some of these numbers because we got it kind of late.
That's
And,
fine.
We're going to bring it up at the next meeting.
That's fine.
Okay?
I would like
Any
to,
report on the fire?
they had a bedroom burn up.
Okay.
And with this colder weather coming, I just urge everyone to be very careful with these space heaters and alternate heating devices. The last two fires we had were from that.
Okay.
So too close to flammables and this is what happens.
Yep.
So I know that using alternate heating devices sometimes comes in handy and it's nice to have, but you got to be careful where you put them.
Yep.
And how you hook them up. No extension cords, the whole 9 yards. They're very powerful units. They draw a lot of electricity, and you use extension cords, they're going to get hot. If you put them too close to beds or anything flammable, curtains, you're going to have a problem. So just want to warn everyone on that. Be very careful.
Good reminder.
Is everybody safe, Chief?
We rescued a cat. He was unresponsive, gave him oxygen and suction, and he came back to life.
Really?
How about that?
Pretty good.
A true Christmas miracle.
Yeah. This was the this was the apartment on top of the 312 bar. That's where that was.
Wow.
Okay.
So that's all I have.
All right. Next item is fiscal officer report.
Yes, we had cash receipts of $802,562.70, disbursements of $1,495,828.90. A complete listing of all receipts and disbursements is available in the packet for your review.
I move we approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwagman?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye. Next item on the agenda, trustee comments. Tracy?
I had the opportunity to participate in the Dillonvale Luminaria last weekend, which was a fantastic event. The weather was spectacular. What I came to recognize very quickly was not only this an event that is well received and loved by the community, but I think probably more than one person from every department at the township participates in pulling that off, from
Yep.
you know, chief and his staff to the sheriff's department to our roads and maintenance and park crews. Everybody has a hand in making that event happen, and it was a terrific event. So I was pleased to be able to participate in that. Wanted to thank everyone here for my first year under my belt. I'm still standing. Thank you for the warm welcome, and not only to everyone here in this room, but the staff as well. You're a great group of folks to work with, and looking forward to 2023. And on that note, just want to wish everyone a happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and all of those holidays that will be coming forward in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, great.
That's all I got.
I'll just mention that Tracy mentioned leaf pickup has ended, just in time for anticipated snow this weekend. Temperatures are going to drop very low this weekend, near zero, so please make sure that you dress warm and bring your pets in if they're outdoors. The 8 days of Hanukkah began Sunday, and I want to wish all our Jewish friends and residents happy Hanukkah. I do want to congratulate Skylar on his new position as administrator at Delhi. I speak for our staff, for everybody, that you'll be sorely missed, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And finally, I just want to wish our staff and residents a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And that's all I got.
Let me add, Skylar, we're really going to miss you here, but I wish you all the success as administrator in Delhi Township. Don't work George Glover quite as hard because you're paying him less over there. But I think he'll do a fine job for you guys there, too. You're joining a fine crowd over there and a great community. My wife grew up in Delhi Township, so I know it well from visiting there many times before we ended up on this side of town. So good luck to you, and don't be a stranger, certainly.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah. Tom, you made a very compelling case there as to what George does for us, and I appreciated hearing all that. And I do hope we all work together on that in the future to get good information on all of that, too, as to what's going on. I wish everybody here up on the panel, the two of you out there, our cameraman, and everyone else out there in the world, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, Happy any other holidays you celebrate. Be safe and be warm this weekend. Thanks.
Okay. Announcements. Christmas holiday is going to be observed on December 26th, so the office will be closed. Same with New Year's on January 2nd. And our next trustee meeting will be January 17th at 7 p.m. I want to make a motion to adjourn into executive session as permitted by Ohio Revised Code Section 121.2 G1 to consider the employment of a public employee and compensation of public employees. Do I have to? Should I read all three of these?
Yeah, you can just say "and" in between them.
And to adjourn into executive session is permitted by Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22 G3 to discuss imminent court action with the Township Law Director. And to adjourn into executive session is permitted by Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22 G8 to consider confidential information relating to a specific business strategy and to discuss negotiations respecting requests for economic development assistance.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I do have a question because I am completely in the dark as to the third of those. Is anyone able to offer a hint as to what this economic development thing concerns?
An executive session.
Yeah, well, it requires a unanimous vote as to that particular section of the executive session code. This popped up on the agenda this afternoon.
It has to do with tire discounts.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have a motion.
I second.
Second. Motion and second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwegman?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye. We are into executive session at 8:02.
Respectfully, with respect to the
Okay, we are back out of executive session at 10:25. Roll call, Mr. Porter.
Mr. James?
I am here.
Ms. Schwegman?
Present.
Mr. Weedman?
Present. Any future business?
Tracy, I'm sorry, I thought you noted it.
Oh, sorry. I guess first item on the list, like to put forward a motion. Are we doing this resolution on the screen first, or are we doing the motion?
It's entirely up to you.
I think we do the motion.
motions.
You wanna do the
since he's
motion?
in here, pay what-
I'd like to make a motion to appoint as zoning director, Mr. Jeff Hugh Cotter at a salary of $90,000 a year, 12 months probation.
I will second.
Is that the proper title or is it planning and zoning administrator?
Sorry, planning and
Planning and
zoning
zoning
administrator. Thank you.
I will second as to that.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter.
Mr. James?
Aye.
Ms. Schwegman?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman?
Aye. Okay. We have a
Now we're
resolution up.
Like to move resolution.
Wait, does somebody need to present it? Or
We need, somebody has to read the title.
We have a resolution establishing rates of pay and benefits for township employees.
I move we approve the resolution.
A second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter?
Mr. James?
Aye.
Mr. Quigley?
Aye.
Mr. Weaver?
Aye.
All right, I'll print this out for everybody
Okay.
to sign.
Is there any other business?
We have that other resolution about the zoning, don't we?
We already approved that. It was just
We
printed
just
for
have the
us to sign,
resolution for the
wasn't it?
pay and
Okay.
benefits.
Yeah, we just have to sign.
Look at the resolution for the pay and
It's not
benefits. It's
stable.
next.
Okay.
So what?
You just clicked off.
That's what we just.
That was what we
It
just
was?
approved, yeah.
We're all tired. It's late.
I have no further business, sir.
Okay, if not, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Merry
Adjourned.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
All right.
Sorry, guys. Totally bummed there.